You know, in our global economy, shipping is everything. It's the circulatory system, the absolute lifeblood of trade. And when one of its biggest players goes down, you feel the shockwaves everywhere. Today, we're looking at South Korea's incredible, high-stakes plan to not just bounce back from a total disaster, but to completely dominate the future of shipping.
Just look at that. Every single one of those containers is part of this massive, intricate dance that happens all over the globe. And for a long, long time, South Korea was one of the lead choreographers. But then, in 2017, the music just stopped. One of their biggest shipping lines, a true global giant, went completely under. And the fallout? Well, it was fast and it was brutal.
The company's name was Hanjin Shipping. And you have to understand, at the time, this was the 7th largest container carrier in the world. So its collapse wasn't just some company going out of business. Oh no, this was a full-blown national crisis that basically threatened to cut South Korea off from the entire global economy.
Okay, so first up, a titan falls. The collapse of Hanjin was so much more than a corporate failure. It was a massive wake-up call for the entire country. It showed a huge vulnerability, and in an instant, just wiped out decades of progress. It forced South Korea to face a really hard truth about how much of its power on the seas had just vanished.
And this number, wow, this number really tells the story. Almost overnight, South Korea's deep-sea container capacity just plummeted. It went from over 1 million TEU, that's the industry term for those standard 20-foot shipping containers, all the way down to just 460,000. That is a 56% drop. The country was quite literally losing its fleet.
So moving on to Section 2, Korea's Grand Plan. Now, instead of just accepting this new reality, South Korea did something incredibly bold. They rolled out a state-led, multi-billion-dollar strategy, and the goal wasn't just to rebuild, it was to completely leapfrog the competition. And this wasn't just some internal recovery plan. Nope, this was a public declaration of intent. The Ministry of Oceans and Fisheries spelled it out for everyone. The vision was to become a global shipping powerhouse by the end of the decade.
Okay, so let's break this down, because these aren't just vague goals. The government set really specific, massive targets for 2030. They want to more than double their shipping revenues. They want to nearly triple their container capacity, blowing past where they were before the Hanjin collapse. And they want to massively expand the total fleet under Korean control to over 140 million DWT. That's deadweight tonnage, which is just the total weight a ship can carry. I mean, this is a plan with serious scale.
So, you might be asking, how on earth do you pay for a dream this big? Well, you create a special financial engine just to make it happen. And that's the Korea Ocean Business Corporation, or KOBC. The easiest way to think of it is as a state-run bank and strategic partner with one single job: to fund Team Korea's big maritime comeback.
Now for our third section. The future is 2D. See, this whole strategy isn't just about getting more ships on the water. It's about getting smarter and cleaner ships. The whole plan really hinges on what they're calling the 2D transformation.
And this slide really lays out those 2Ds perfectly. These are the 2 pillars of Korea's strategy: decarbonization and digitalization. So on one side, you have this huge push to build green, eco-friendly ships to meet all the new global climate rules. And on the other side, you've got this high-tech race to pioneer fully autonomous, self-sailing ships. It's really like a 2-pronged attack on the future of shipping.
Right, so the first challenge, going green, is basically non-negotiable. You've got the International Maritime Organization and the EU pushing for really strict emissions targets, so Korea is betting big. The government's offering up tax breaks and helping to finance up to 30% of construction costs just to speed things up. Their goal is to convert over 500 ships to run on cleaner fuels like LNG, methanol, and ammonia.
But if going green is about keeping up, that second D, digitalization, is all about getting way ahead of the curve. This is where the strategy goes from rebuilding what they lost to basically inventing the future. And this is where it gets really exciting, because South Korea is trying to position itself as the world leader in autonomous shipping.
And I want to be clear, this isn't science fiction. This is a very real step-by-step national plan, and it's even backed up by new laws like the Autonomous Ship Act. They are already deep into developing the core technology, they're building automated test ports, and they're timing their commercial launch to line up perfectly with new international rules. It's all part of the plan.
Which brings us to Section 4, a sea of rivals. Because of course, South Korea isn't doing any of this in a bubble. The world of global shipping is a sea of giants,
and the whole competitive landscape is shifting under their feet.
Starting in 2025, the big shipping alliances, which are basically just teams of carriers that work together to share ships and cover more routes, they're all getting a major shakeup. You can see the new breakdown right here. South Korea's main carrier, HMM, is a really important piece of this new premier alliance. But while it's a solid partnership, you'll notice it's also the smallest of the major alliances, and that just highlights the incredible pressure they're under to compete.
Naturally, this super-aggressive, state-funded push has not gone unnoticed. In fact, it has kicked off a huge international dispute. Rival countries are looking at all this and asking a pretty pointed question. Is this a brilliant national strategy, or is it just an unfair government subsidy?
So back in 2018, Japan and the European Union, they filed a formal complaint with the World Trade Organization. They're arguing that this massive financial support, which is funneled through state-owned groups like that KOBC we talked about, isn't just helping the industry. They say it's illegally propping it up. They claim it's allowing Korean companies to offer prices below market value and that it's distorting global competition. This whole dispute is a really crucial high-stakes backdrop to everything Korea is trying to do.
So what does this all add up to? Let's get to our final section, the high-stakes voyage. What we're looking at here is more than just a recovery plan. It's a massive government-directed industrial policy. It is a huge bet that a nation can actually engineer its own way back to the very top of a critical global industry.
So from the ashes of that Hanjin bankruptcy, South Korea is trying to pull off one of the most ambitious industrial turnarounds in the world today. It's a massive gamble, right? Leveraging public money to chase tech supremacy in green and autonomous shipping, all in the hopes of turning a moment of total crisis into a position of long-term global strength.
And that really leaves us with a giant question for our time. You know, in an era where supply chains are fracturing and global competition is getting more and more intense, is this the new model for success? Will the future belong to the countries that are willing to bet big, to go all in and use the full power of the state to build the industries of tomorrow? The risks are huge, from trade wars to maybe betting on the wrong tech. But South Korea has placed its bet, and now the rest of the world is watching to see if it pays off.